Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. John Bartz here with Network Consulting Services, and today we're diving into workflows with Okta. We've got our identity experts here, Wendy Busath and Bryan Hadzik with us today. Welcome everyone.
Hi there.
Okay, Bryan, Wendy, let's go ahead and dive into workflows as easy as pie.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. I forgot the memo on shaving, so maybe I'll do it for the next webinar we do. So thanks everyone for joining. I'm really excited about this product. Okta is a really cool technology that helps out a lot of our customers, and you know, they've come to me before with their really complex onboarding scenarios. And you know, in the past, it was a real struggle for us. We weren't able to necessarily jump in and solve all of those more complex, intricate details with bringing people on board. So I'm very excited to have Wendy talk to us about this product today, the workflows, and please, you know, ask questions as we're going through here. I've got the question and answer open, so you know, please ask those questions as we go along, and we'll hope to jump in and talk more about that. So Wendy, thanks very much for joining us, and I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, sounds good. So welcome everybody. Like they said, my name is Wendy. I'm from Okta. I'm a sales engineer there at Okta, and just wanted to talk a little bit about a new product that we have that, as Bryan said, is so exciting, because what it's going to allow us to do is say pretty much, yes, we can, to any question that a customer or prospect asks us. So just give you a little background around what workflows is. So we have, whoops, went a little extra fast there. We have what we call our platform services. Platform services is comprised of these 6 different pieces. And so if you are familiar with Okta already, you'll know that we have Universal Directory, which is underlying our entire technology, so where we store users. We have integrations with lots of different partners, with ISVs, and we also have what we call insights. So insights are kind of our, let's help you learn how to be more secure sort of stuff. So we are checking how you have configured Okta, and we're saying maybe you could do this a little bit more securely. We have now Identity Engine, which is a kind of an Okta 2.0. So we are adding a whole bunch of functionality into Okta, and we're changing the fundamental way that Okta works by allowing it to be more extensible and customizable, built of smaller building blocks than it used to be. And on the far right there is devices. So this is kind of a new foray that Okta has launched into, is calling ourselves platform services, and we're making that up of these separate pieces. So devices now is going to be our ability to control devices, almost like not like an MDM, but more like we are checking the posture, the security posture on devices, and allowing you to do things like authenticate without a password, because of our devices, the knowledge that we have about the devices. And finally, what we're going to talk about today is that one that's highlighted in orange there, workflows. And workflows is a tool which will allow us to extend our lifecycle management functionality, which will allow us to extend our logic functionality. So historically, we had like lifecycle management, if you're familiar with that, and it automates common scenarios. So back in the day when I was a programmer, we used to call this the happy path. So when a tester would get my code and go through and try to see if it still worked after I made a change to the code, you know, they would say, well, I tested the happy path and that part works, but if I throw any weird little caveat into there, then it doesn't work anymore, right? And so it's kind of the same concept, where Okta has this lifecycle management, but what it does is it only follows a single path. It's that happy path. And if there's something that needs to be customized or changed, Okta is historically not as well equipped to do that. We love LCM, the historical LCM, because it's really prescriptive. It's super easy to use, and you just turn it on and turn it off. And for the most part, about 80, 90% of the time, it does exactly what you want it to do. So for instance, on this slide, we're talking about joiner, mover, leaver. So somebody joins the company, somebody switches roles in the company, somebody leaves the company. And typically what we'll need to do when someone joins the company or changes roles is we'll need to do account provisioning. So we'll grab that information, maybe we'll create them an account in Box, okay? Now with workflows, what we're trying to do is allow more flexibility than that. So we're getting away from just the happy path. And instead of doing just a joiner, mover, leaver, basing things off of those 3 events, what we're doing is we're adding logic and actions and timing into anything that happens in the life cycle of a user. And so that is going to then allow us to do this deeper account provisioning. And so instead of just creating them an account in Box, we are going to also set entitlements in Box, and we're going to set up which folder shares that person needs to have in Box. So what it's the way that it works is it's using customized logic, and this is not logic that Okta bakes into our tool. It's logic that you can create from scratch. And so it's kind of like, it's almost like writing code, because you have to have that logical mind to be able to separate out, if this, then do this, then do that, right? And so in the slide here, you can see when a particular event happens, then if this is true, then do that. So we could say, for instance, if a user, if Okta assigns a user to Salesforce, the application, then we can check and see, well, is the user on the EMEA sales team? And if so, then we want to assign them a territory in Salesforce, as well as add that user to a specific Slack channel that represents that EMEA sales group. Okay, so we can do very customized things that are going to be different for every single one of our customers using this customized logic. So on the very left-hand side here, you can see a picture of what a flow looks like, and it's an animated GIF. So you can see how you can drag and drop information from what we call a card to another card. And in the middle, you can see that we have pre-built integrations, connectors to existing applications and systems, right? So you know how Okta is well known for having connectors to thousands of different applications that are out there today. We are building up this same library of connectors to support many of the applications that Okta ties in with today. And so you'll still have that LCM piece that we used to do where you just create the user in Box. But then you can see here, we also have Box as an application that we have in our connectors library for workflows. And so that will allow you to call, basically call specific APIs within Box and do management things within Box through workflows. And then on the very right-hand side of the slide, you can see there's advanced logic. So we can do things like build custom strings, we can insert variables into there, we can call APIs even for applications and systems that we don't have a connector for. We can call generic REST endpoints and kick off workflows in that way as well.
So, hey, Wendy, you even mentioned that you'd been a programmer in the past, and mentioned several things like that. This doesn't look like programming. This looks like just dragging and dropping, and I can hand this to pretty much any administrator, and they can figure out that kind of logic. So
yeah. And what we're really targeting here is the ability for business process folks to be able to say, this is what I need to happen. And they don't have to have a programmer on the line to write up the script, write up the logic in code. So it really is going to allow IT, who probably will own this functionality, to work better with the business side, with those folks in HR, with those folks in management who really understand what needs to happen when a user changes a role, for instance. Alrighty, so I was going to kind of walk through the pre-built connectors that we have today. We have around 20 to 30 that exist today, and as you know, Workflows is a brand new tool in the Okta tool belt, and so we are extending and working on this really fast to get more and more pre-built connectors in there. But as I said, you can call any generic API you want through this Workflows as well. All right, so let's dive in. Let's do a little bit of a demo. And I wanted to just kind of talk you through what I'm going to demo first so that it makes sense to you. And as I said, this workflows tool is meant to augment stuff that Okta already does. So it's going to make Okta better, but it's not going to necessarily replace the old lifecycle management stuff that Okta does, and it's not necessarily going to replace other things that Okta already has baked into it. For example, what you're seeing on my screen right now, this is my Okta administrative console. So for those of you that are familiar with Okta, this is a very familiar site to you. So what I wanted to talk about is a couple of things. So let's say that in Okta, you have turned on this setting right here, which allows end users to report suspicious activity via email. Okay, and this is also going to send an email to a user if, for instance, the MFA enrollment has changed for their specific account, right? And so what happens here, if you enable all of these things, the end user will get an email if something has changed on their account, and they'll have the opportunity to hit a button that says, I want to report suspicious activity, right? And then what happens when they click that button is it's just going to, this Okta system will send an email to the Okta administrator and inform them, hey, John Smith had reported some suspicious activity. Now that's as far as it goes for what's baked into Okta as a whole today. Okay, so what if you wanted to augment that process? And let's say you wanted to be able to do something custom if somebody reports a suspicious activity. So I've worked up a workflow that will allow you to augment that. So if I switch over, and here, this is how you would get to this. You just click the Workflows console button right from your Okta administrative console, and it will open up a new window to the Workflows Builder, okay? So the Workflows Builder, what that looks like is you have folders and you have the ability to create what we call flows. And these flows are that custom logic, okay? So what I've done here is I've built a flow that is going to handle suspicious activity being reported. So in the first card here, what I did is I chose an event that I could kick this workflow off of. And that event happens to be the suspicious activity was reported in Okta. So when that happened, there's an event that happens in Okta. Okta calls into workflows. And you can see here that what I'm doing in the second one is for the specific user who had the suspicious activity report, I am going to clear all of the sessions in Okta. And I'm doing that by using an Okta event. So every time I want to add a new action or a bit of logic, then I can just click, and at the end of this, I'll show you how that looks like. I can click and add a new action or a new piece of logic into this flow, and each card is augmented by additional logic going to the right. So what I've done is I've pulled the user ID that was in that event into this card now, and what this card is doing is it's going to call an API within Okta that clears all of the sessions for that particular user. And then after that, what I wanted to do is I wanted to beef up the security policies on that particular user by forcing them to only be able to authenticate using a biometric, so a thumbprint. And so this is what this is done by the fact that I've added that user to a specific group in Okta. Now I've instantly changed their authentication policy so that they must provide a biometric. And then finally, what I've done is I'm composing a message here that I can send to a Slack channel, which is a security Slack channel that will alert someone on my IT team that in fact there was a security alert and I have cleared the session for that particular user. And now I've made their MFA have to be a biometric. So I'm posting that message into a Slack channel to alert my IT team. Okay, so what that would look like is this. Let's say I'm going to go and I'm going to log in as a user here. So first of all, in Okta, I'm going to be using a user called Steve, and let's just go look at that person. And this is actually, it's my husband's birthday today. So I am logging in as him, just to kind of wish him happy birthday, even though he's not here. So we have this user, and this user is currently not a member of any groups except for the everyone group, which everyone's a member of. And then we do have some security policies. Right now, the authentication policy is set up so that unless there is suspicious activity reported on that person or an anomalous behavior, what's going to happen is that person is going to be allowed to log in using just a password, no MFA, nothing on top of that. Okay. So now to kind of simulate what would happen if there was a suspicious event generated, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as that user with just a password, note. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to make a change to his enrollment for MFA, and that should trigger one of those emails to be sent to the user. So I'm going to go ahead and edit his profile, and I'm going to say, after I've verified I am who I say I am, that I want to add a new security method. And so I am going to go ahead and I'm going to sign up for SMS authentication, which I suppose I'm going to need my phone for. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set up the SMS, which will send a code to my phone for verification. And there it is. So now I have enrolled that user in a new method for MFA. So now if I check my email or his email, what's going to happen is I'm going to have a new email, and it is going to be telling me, hey, there was something changed in your MFA enrollment. Do you want to report suspicious activity? So I'll bring this over on the screen so you can see that. So I have received the email, or Steve has, and I'm going to say, yeah, that wasn't me. I want to report suspicious activity. So what happens now is that activity report is going to be sent through to Okta, which will generate that event. So if I switch back now to my flow and my Slack window, you can see there was a brand new alert that has been sent to Slack that says, hey, user Steve Lindsay has had their Okta sessions cleared and has been set to MFA only via biometric. Okay, so it sent the Slack message, and now I'll show you what happened over here. So if I try to go to a different screen, oh, well, his session has been cleared. So in fact, he was kicked out of all of his Okta sessions, which effectively keeps him out of all of the applications Okta is protecting for him. And now if I go to log in again and hit next, it's going to ask me for a biometric, not a password. Okay. So I had to do that because my group membership had been changed through that workflow in Okta. Okay. Are there any questions on that, Brian, that have come in?
Yeah, so that was fabulous, Wendy. You know, being able to change the context of something that was maybe always so rigid in the past, where nothing would happen, or just an email would go out to some box that someone wouldn't check.
Yeah, right.
Being able actually to have an action, have something happen automatically. I love the fact that it didn't even have to just tell the people on the security team to go do something. It went and did the action itself. It cleared it. It stepped up the authentication and then sent a, oh, by the way, alert over to the security team. So
right.
So those actions were awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's all really dedicated to helping our IT teams have less stuff to triage, right? And less stuff to do manually, because we know when they do stuff manually, they often do it incorrectly. There's, fat fingering things that they might type in. There's just nobody listening, nobody watching for the events, or someone's not trained to handle it correctly. So the more things that we can automate, the better security that we will have at the companies.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fabulous. And when I first looked at this product, I always focused on just those kind of adds, moves, and changes. The joining and the leaving, like you described earlier. But this really puts a good context on it that there are many different phases of a user, even happening in the middle of the day that
Mhm.
are going through and happening, and we need to pay attention to, and we need to have some automated actions go against this. So there's a question here. Can you like export these or share these with other
Mhm.
people?
Yeah, you absolutely can. So you can export the flow. And what we're going to do is we are going to create a marketplace where our customers can share these flows and, post, I created this flow, this is what it does. You can take it and then you import it into your workflows and you can customize it however you want, right? And we do have a whole team of folks at Okta that are looking at common use cases, and we're building those common workflows so that we can just share them with you for free, and then you can, again, just customize those further if you need to. But one important thing is that we do allow you a nice framework to be able to debug. And like as you're building these, you might have difficulties and it might not work correctly. So I just wanted to show you quickly how we have this flow history view where we can go through and you can see the green check marks here. You can see everything executed correctly this time. But you can see when I was doing some testing before, long ago, last month, there were some errors that have occurred. And so you can click into these, you can see what the error was, and it's a really nice ability for you to debug as well. And this stuff also is, of course, going to be logged so that we will have the ability to look through the logs and see what's happening, what has happened, and be able to troubleshoot as well as audit what's going on in our organization. So that's a really nice tool. Another thing I wanted to point out was the fact that, we have these cards and stuff, but in fact, there's more to it than that. We do have, for example, I created a phrase generator so that I could create a random password phrase for a brand new user that came into my organization. And this is a common use case. A lot of times we have a new user that comes into our organization, and there isn't really a good way of delivering his or her default password on day one for that user. And so that is an example of one of these custom flows that Okta is creating that we can share with our customers so that they will be able to invoke this flow so that that password is a random phrase that's generated by workflows and that it is being sent to someone in an email or in a Slack message or however you want that to be, so that can be distributed to the brand new user on their first day. And I wanted to point out one of the things that this phrase generator is utilizing within workflows is a table. So workflows has the ability to store static data and look through that data, parse that data, augment that data, and make changes to that. And so this is an example of that. So I've imported some nerdy, Star Wars type of stuff from a CSV file into my workflows table, and that's what I'm using to generate that password for the user on the first day.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, being able to deliver that out to the user has always been, such a struggle. I can see the workflow really plugging right into that. And back to that comment about the programming nature. I'm not a programmer, but that debugging view that you showed looked very, very logical and easy for someone to go and step through. So that looked great.
Yeah, and like I said, you can save that flow history as long as you want. This workflows tool has been built in the cloud from the ground up, just like Okta. And what that affords us is the ability to have kind of unlimited storage and to have some really high performance metrics coming out of this tool. So instead of having to run that logic on your own premises and have beefy servers to do stuff like that, if you have hundreds of thousands of users that are in your system, that could get very taxing. And so it's nice to know that this is in the cloud. You have the ability to have that infinite scale in the cloud as well.
Great. I have a few other questions here, Wendy. How many different applications do we have pre-built integrations into workflows for?
So there are about 20 to 30 right now. And in fact, I can kind of click on this and create, hold on. Let me see here if I can create a new one. I'll create a new folder. And I'm going to go into that folder and I'm going to say I want to create a new flow. And this will give you kind of an idea of how this works. So if I want to add an event, this is how I check and see what types of events are supported by the Workflows tool. So I have different applications that I've connected on a federated basis. So that means I am talking to Gmail, to Okta, to Salesforce, and Slack from Workflows. I've set up an authentication so that I can call APIs into those tools. What I can also do is I can not have this based on an event. I can have it based on a schedule instead. So there isn't some event that's kicking off the workflow. I've got it scheduled so I can run it every day at 5 p.m. or whatever that is, right? And then here's an example of the applications that we have created connectors for today. And if I click on one of those, you can see the different types of things, events. These are just the events that are published by Slack. And so these are the ones that we could tie in here. So that's an example. Like I said, it's probably 20 to 30 right now, but this is growing really quickly and we're adding stuff every day.
Okay, great. So another question, what about integrating with a automatic provisioning for an HR or IS system that is not connected to Okta's integration network or not supported?
Right. So, and I find that that's going to be something that we're asked a lot of. And today, what our strategy is to augment existing HR as a master integrations that we already have. So Okta has a bunch of those already, right? With like Workday or, NetSuite or Oracle or a lot of the different HR tools. We have what we call an HR as a master integration built with those. And the HR as a master integrations are actually very deep. There's a lot of logic going on in there. There's a lot of code in those. And we don't recommend right now that you try to implement a full HR as a master type of a two-way sync using workflows yet, because we're just starting with workflows. And what we're targeting in the first phase of releasing workflows is augmenting existing HR as a master connectors, but not replacing them with workflows quite yet.
Okay, great. So here's probably a very technical question. What is the back end of workflows, such as SOA, service-oriented architecture? Do you know that?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. And it's kind of like even the rest of Okta, right? We don't necessarily publish what our backend looks like, both for the purpose of being more secure. We don't want people to know how we've implemented this stuff so that they, because there will be an attack vector there if they do understand the underlying technologies that we use. And frankly, they haven't let us know what it is based on. So yeah, all we care about is that it works, right?
Yeah, no, that's the great part about it. Far too many times with technology, we're futzing with the tool. We're trying to get the tool to work properly instead of actually using the tool. So I love the concept that it's just all cloud based. I just have to click on it and I know it's going to work, and I don't have to worry about the back end. So a couple of other questions here. We have a lot of Avanti customers and several questions about connectors and so forth to those products. And I'm sure they're not there yet. Based on the integrations that we saw, it was pretty standard right now. But I'm sure they're going to be added in the near future.
Yeah, and in the future, you will have the ability to add your own integrations as well. So we're going to try to farm this out to our partners and even some of our customers to create these integrations, and then we can populate them back into the Okta marketplace, hopefully.
Okay,
so
great.
that's
Did you also mention that REST is a capability built in right now? So you can just call it any REST API?
any API, yep.
Okay, great. So, that could be a good integration point.
Yeah,
right there.
absolutely. We've already got customers because we ran a beta with this a few months ago. And we have customers here in the state of Utah, in fact, that are kind of building their own. I talked to a customer last week that was building an integration with their phone system because there was a lot of manual processes and onboarding a new employee for their call center. And so they've used workflows to call APIs within that phone system, and it's working really nicely for them.
Great. No, that's a great use case, and it really gets my mind going on all the different things you could do that in the past are such a manual process or something that we always have to assign to a human, and humans are expensive. It takes a lot of work for them to go through and complete those tasks. So
yeah, and they're
really,
fallible. They do things wrong sometimes. So
yeah, absolutely. So it's really getting the juices flowing on where we could potentially integrate this. So. Okay, well, I would like to thank everyone for coming. Wendy, thank you very much for coming and showing us more about the Workflows product. That was a great run through. I would just say that anyone else on the call, if you have any further questions or further clarifications, you can please let your salesperson know, and they can contact me. We're going to put this recording up on YouTube if you want to review it again. And we are, there's even my email address if you want to have a follow-up with me and you want to talk about more how this functions, or even if you're not an Okta customer yet and you want to know more about its great features of, single sign-on and multi-factor and the universal directory around Okta. So I'd love to have that conversation with you if you want to. So hit up myself or hit up one of your salespeople, and we'll be more than happy to tell you more about it. So again, Wendy, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone, have a great day. Thank you.
Bye, guys.